Captain Minho Park stood on the observation deck of the New Harmony Colony Station, watching the morning sun rise over fields of golden wheat. The peaceful sight made him smile. 300 years of quiet life had made humans good at growing things. They were farmers now, artists, teachers. War was something they read about in old history books. "Another boring day in paradise," said Lieutenant Hyun Lee as he joined Minho at the window. The young officer carried a datapad filled with routine reports. Traffic control, weather updates, crop yields. Nothing exciting ever happened on New Harmony. Minho laughed. "Boring is good. Our grandparents fought enough wars for 10 lifetimes. He pointed to the wheat fields. "This is better than battlefields." Hyun nodded but looked thoughtful. He spent his free time reading old military records. Most people thought it was a strange hobby. Who wanted to study ancient wars when you could paint or write music instead? "Sir, I found something weird in the archives yesterday," Hyun said. "There are gaps in our military history. Big ones. Like someone erased whole sections." "Maybe they wanted to forget," Minho replied. "Some memories are better left buried." Far across the galaxy on the capital world of the Velkari Empire, Hive General Techmore studied reports about human colonies. The insect-like alien clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among his kind. "Soft creatures," he told his officers. "They grow food and make art. They have forgotten how to fight. When we attack, they will surrender like frightened children." The Velkari had conquered 47 worlds in the past decade. Each victory came easier than the last. Most species begged for mercy before the first shot was fired. Humans would be no different. Back on New Harmony, Ambassador Jiwon Kim received an urgent message from the Galactic Council. The Velkari Empire had issued an ultimatum. All human colonies must evacuate their worlds within 30 days. Any humans who remained would be considered hostile and eliminated. Jiwon felt her hands shake as she read the message. Humans had been peaceful for so long that most colonies did not even have proper weapons. They had security forces for keeping order, not armies for fighting wars. She called an emergency meeting with the colonial governors. Captain Minho attended as the head of New Harmony's security force. Around the holographic table, worried faces stared at the Velkari. "Message, we have to negotiate," said Governor Sunmi from the industrial world of Kepler Prime. "There must be something they want besides our planets, and they want our worlds because they think we are weak," replied Governor Do-hyun from the mining colonies. "The question is, are they right?" Minho felt something stirred deep in his chest. It was not fear, though he should have been afraid. It was something else. Something he did not recognize. "How many ships do we have?" he asked. "Our transport fleet has maybe 200 vessels," Jiwon answered. "But they are cargo ships, not warships. We have no weapons that could fight a military fleet." "Then we ask for help from other species," suggested Governor Mireille. Jiwon shook her head. "I already tried. The Hegemony Council says they cannot interfere with Velkari expansion. Every other species is too scared to fight them." The meeting ended with no good options. They would try to negotiate, but everyone knew the Velkari did not make deals with species they considered inferior. That night, Lieutenant Hyun could not sleep. He went to the archives and kept searching through old files. The gaps in human military history bothered him. Why would peaceful people hide their past so carefully? Deep in the oldest files, he found a reference to something called war protocols. The file was locked, but Hyun had learned how to bypass security systems during his officer training. What he found made his blood run cold. The war protocols were not just military plans. They were biological programs built into human genetics, instructions that activated during times of extreme danger. The file mentioned combat enhancement, tactical evolution, and predator awakening. It sounded like science fiction, but the documents were real. They carried the official seals of Earth's government from centuries ago. "What did we used to be?" Hyun whispered to himself. The answer came sooner than anyone expected. 3 days after the ultimatum, Velkari ships appeared in the Kepler 442 system. The mining colony there had 50,000 people. Men, women, children who had never hurt anyone in their lives. The Velkari did not bother with warnings. They opened fire immediately. Minho watched the live feed from Kepler 442 with growing horror. Plasma beams turned homes into ash. Families he had visited during colony inspections simply vanished in flashes of light. Children who had shown him their drawings. Miners who had invited him to dinner. The massacre lasted 6 hours. When it ended, Kepler 442 was a dead world. That night, Minho felt the strange sensation in his chest grow stronger. It was not grief, though he grieved. It was not anger, though he was angry. It was something deeper, something that felt like waking up after a very long sleep. Across human space, people watched the recordings from Kepler 442. They saw their friends and family members murdered for the crime of being weak. For the first time in 3 centuries, humans felt something their ancestors knew well. They felt the desire for war. Dr. Sunmi Choi, a geneticist on New Terra, noticed something strange in her research lab that night. Human blood samples from across the colonies were showing unusual changes. Hormone levels were spiking, but not in patterns she recognized from any medical textbook. It was as if human biology was responding to some ancient signal. Something that had been sleeping for 300 years was starting to wake up, and the galaxy was about to remember why humans had once been feared. The news from Kepler 442 spread through human space like wildfire. On every colony, in every city, people gathered around screens to watch the recordings of their people dying. The images were burned into their minds. Children vaporized while playing in gardens, families holding each other as plasma fire consumed their homes. Dr. Sunmi Choi could not sleep after seeing the footage. She worked through the night in her laboratory on New Terra, running tests on blood samples from humans across the colonies. The results made no sense according to everything she knew about human biology. "These readings are impossible," she muttered, staring at her screens. Human DNA was changing, not slowly over generations but quickly, in days, even hours. Dormant genetic sequences were activating all across human space. She called her colleague, Dr. Young-Ho Kim, who worked at the medical center on Proxima Station. "Young-Ho, are you seeing strange blood chemistry in your patients?" "Strange does not begin to describe it," he replied. "People are coming to me with headaches, muscle pain, insomnia, but their bodies are producing chemicals I have never seen before. It is like they are evolving in real time." On New Harmony, Captain Minho felt the changes in himself. His reflexes were faster. His thinking was sharper. When he looked at tactical displays, patterns jumped out at him that he had never noticed before. Battle strategies formed in his mind without conscious thought. Lieutenant Hune brought him more files from the archives. "Sir, I found something important. There is a sealed vault beneath the Capitol building. It requires authorization from the highest military commander." "That would be Admiral Song," Minho said. "But he is on Earth." "Actually, sir, he arrived this morning. He says he needs to speak with you immediately." Admiral Jae-ho Song was a legend among the human fleet. He had served for 60 years, keeping the peace between colonies and maintaining humanity's small defensive force. When Minho met him in the secure conference room, he was surprised by what he saw. The old admiral looked different. His eyes were sharp and focused in a way Minho had never seen before. He moved like a much younger man, and there was something dangerous in his posture. "Captain Park," the admiral said, "it is time you learned the truth about humanity." He activated a holographic display that showed the sealed vault beneath the building. "This vault contains records that have been hidden for 3 centuries. Records of what humans were before the Great Pacification." "The Great Pacification?" Minho asked. "The period when humanity chose to suppress its true nature," Song explained. "We were not always farmers and artists, Captain. We were something else entirely." They descended into the vault together. The security systems recognized Admiral Song and opened massive blast doors that had not moved in centuries. Inside, rows of data storage units hummed with power, maintained by automated systems. "What you are about to see will change everything you believe about our species," Song warned. The first files made Minho's blood run cold. Military records from humanity's expansion period showed a species that waged war with creativity and brutality that shocked even hardened soldiers. Humans had fought battles across dozens of star systems, using tactics so ruthless that entire enemy civilizations surrendered rather than face human forces in battle. "We were not just good at war," Admiral Song explained. "We were the best the galaxy had ever seen. We turned conflict into an art form. Other species called us the Death Weavers because we could find a way to kill anything. Then why did we stop?" Minho asked. "Because we nearly destroyed ourselves," Song replied. "Human creativity in warfare became so advanced that we developed weapons capable of cracking planets. We came within days of making our own species extinct, so our leaders made a choice. The files showed the biological programs that had been built into human genetics, war protocols that activated during times of extreme stress, enhancing reaction time, strategic thinking, and physical capabilities. But more than that, they enhanced the human capacity for violence. They suppressed the war genes, Song continued, convinced the population that peaceful evolution was our natural path. For 3 centuries, we have been living a lie. Meanwhile, across human space, the changes continued. On the agricultural world of Ceres Prime, farmer Nari Bay found herself designing defensive positions around her settlement without knowing why. The patterns came to her naturally, as if she had been a military engineer her entire life. On Proxima Station, security officer Sua Nam discovered that she could predict the movements of people in crowds with uncanny accuracy. She started seeing tactical patterns everywhere, identifying weak points in station security that had never occurred to her before. The Velkari Empire noticed the changes too. Their scouts reported that human colonies were responding differently to threats. Instead of panicking or fleeing, humans were organizing with military precision. Hive General Techmore studied the reports with growing unease. The soft creatures are acting strangely. Their defensive preparations show knowledge they should not possess. Perhaps they are simply learning quickly, suggested one of his subordinates. No, Techmore replied. This is something else. Send more scouts. I want to know what the humans are hiding. Back on New Terra, Dr. Sunmi made a breakthrough in her research. The genetic changes were not random mutations. They were following specific patterns, as if human DNA contained hidden instructions that were being activated by stress hormones. It is like a biological weapon system, she told her research team, but instead of targeting enemies, it targets the humans themselves. It makes them more effective at warfare. She tried to contact government officials but found that normal communication channels were being restructured. Military personnel were taking control of civilian systems, not through force but through natural leadership that people accepted without question. Captain Minho, now promoted to colonel by Admiral Song's orders, established a new command structure for the human colonies. The civilians did not resist. In fact, they seemed to welcome the change. It felt natural to them in ways they could not explain. We need to prepare for the next Velkari attack, he told the gathered colony leaders. They will come in force this time. How can we fight them? Asked Governor Sunmi. We still have no warships. Minho smiled, and the expression was not entirely human anymore. We will build them, and we will build them fast. Across human space, shipyards that had built cargo vessels for centuries suddenly began producing designs that looked nothing like peaceful transport ships. Workers found themselves installing weapon systems they had never seen before, following blueprints that seemed to appear from nowhere. The ships looked wrong to anyone who remembered peaceful humanity. They were sleek and predatory, designed for speed and killing. They looked like the ships of a species that had never forgotten how to wage war. Because deep in human genetic memory, they never had. The war genes were awakening, and with them, humanity was remembering what they truly were. The galaxy was about to discover that the peaceful gardeners had been sleeping gods of war all along. 6 months after the massacre at Kepler 442, humanity was no longer the same species. The transformation was complete in some people and still growing in others. Colonel Minho Park stood in the command center of New Harmony, watching tactical displays that would have confused him a year ago. Now the information flowed through his mind like water, forming battle plans and strategic assessments without conscious effort. The Velkari had made their second mistake. They attacked the mining station at Asteroid Belt 7, expecting another easy victory like Kepler 442. Instead, they found humans who fought back with skills that seemed impossible. Colonel Sua Nam had been a simple security officer before the awakening. Now she commanded the defense of Proxima Station with the tactical genius of someone who had fought 1,000 battles. Her forces moved like dancers, each unit perfectly coordinated with the others. Enemy ships approaching Vector 7 Mark IV, reported Lieutenant Mirai, her voice calm despite the approaching danger. The young pilot had discovered she could fly combat maneuvers that should have been impossible for human reflexes. Her reaction time was faster than the ship's computers. Let them come closer, Sua ordered. We want them to feel confident. The Velkari fleet moved into attack formation, expecting minimal resistance. They found themselves surrounded by human ships that seemed to appear from empty space. The vessels were sleek and deadly, built with technology that combined human engineering with recovered Valkyrie systems in ways that should not have worked. Engineer Do-Hyun Yu watched his weapon systems come online. He had designed them using principles he did not remember learning. The plasma cannons fired in patterns that created devastating crossfire zones. The Valkyrie ships found themselves trapped in a web of destruction they could not escape. Direct hit on their command ship, Mireille reported. They are breaking formation. But Sua was not satisfied with victory. Something deeper drove her now. Something that wanted complete dominance over the enemy. Pursue them. Do not let any escape. The battle that followed was not just a military victory. It was a demonstration of what awakened humans could do. The Valkyrie fleet was not just defeated but completely annihilated. No survivors. No escape pods. Nothing left but wreckage and the memory of superior human tactics. News of the victory spread through both human and alien space. The galactic community watched the battle recordings with growing alarm. These were not the same humans who had grown crops and written poetry for 3 centuries. Dr. Sunmi Choi studied the biological data from the battle survivors. The war genes were fully active now in most of the population. Human children were being born with enhanced reflexes and intuitive understanding of 3-dimensional tactics. They are not just remembering old skills, she reported to the Emergency Council. They are evolving new ones. Human capability for warfare is advancing beyond anything in our historical records. The other alien species began to take notice. The Hegemony Council called emergency sessions to discuss what they were calling the human anomaly. Mediator Veltar, a diplomatic representative from the peaceful Altair Confederation, requested permission to study human colonies. This is unprecedented, Veltar reported after visiting New Terra. The humans have undergone complete social restructuring in less than a year. Their civilian population now thinks in military terms. Their children play games that are actually combat simulations. The transformation was visible everywhere. Human art had become focused on themes of conflict and victory. Their music carried rhythms that matched military marching patterns. Even their architecture was changing, with new buildings designed like fortresses rather than homes. Admiral Jeho Song established the new Human Defense Command on Earth. The planet that had been a peaceful center of learning and culture was rapidly becoming a military headquarters. Orbital defense platforms emerged from what had appeared to be civilian infrastructure. The fishing fleet is ready, reported Fleet Commander Young-Ho Ko during a briefing. What he called a fishing fleet was actually a disguised armada of warships. Humanity had been building weapons while pretending to maintain peaceful activities. The Valkyrie Empire faced their first major military defeat in centuries. Hive General Thekmor studied the battle recordings from Proxima Station with increasing fear. The human tactics were unlike anything in Valkyrie military doctrine. They fight without honor, he complained to his war council. They use deception, misdirection, psychological warfare. They turned our own formation against us. Perhaps we underestimated them, suggested Sub-General Kethavar. No, Thekmor replied. Something has changed. The humans we fought are not the same species that grew vegetables 6 months ago. They have become something else. The Valkyrie decided to form an alliance with other aggressive species. The Skareen Collective and the Mordak clans agreed to join forces against humanity. 3 military powers that had never cooperated before, united against a single species they now recognized as a threat. Together, we will crush these evolved humans before they become too dangerous, Thekmor declared. But humanity was already too dangerous. General Minho Park, promoted again after his victories in the outer colonies, received intelligence about the alien alliance. His response was not fear but excitement. Finally, a real challenge, he told his staff officers. The words came from something deep inside him, something that had been sleeping for centuries and was now fully awake. The war genes had given humans more than just enhanced combat abilities. They had restored the human love of warfare itself. The species that had once conquered half the galaxy was remembering why they had enjoyed it so much. Specialist Nari. They developed new weapon systems that exploited the biological weaknesses of each enemy species. Her sonic disruptors could shatter Valkyrie communication frequencies, causing their hive mind fleets to attack their own ships. Her chemical weapons targeted Skareen nervous systems, and her electromagnetic pulses disabled Mordak technology. We are not just fighting them, she explained to her research team. We are dissecting them, finding every weakness, every fear, every way to break their will to fight. The three-power alliance prepared for what they expected to be the largest military campaign in galactic history. 3 species with combined fleets of over 10,000 warships, veteran crews who had conquered dozens of worlds, weapons technology refined through centuries of warfare. They faced a human force of less than 2,000 ships crewed by people who had been farmers and artists a year ago. The aliens were confident of victory. They had overwhelming numerical superiority and centuries of military experience. What they did not understand was that they were not fighting farmers who had learned to fight. They were fighting a species of predators who had temporarily forgotten what they were. The Battle of Wolf 359 would teach the galaxy that there was a difference between being good at war and being born for it. Humanity was about to show them what gods of war could accomplish when they stopped pretending to be gardeners. 1 year after the first Velkari attack, humanity had become something the galaxy had never seen before. The peaceful gardeners were gone completely, replaced by a species that waged war with artistic precision and terrifying joy. General Minho Park stood on the bridge of the HSS Retribution, humanity's new flagship. The vessel was a masterpiece of evolved human engineering, combining captured alien technology with innovations that seemed to come from genetic memory. Every line of the ship was designed for killing. "Sir, the enemy alliance fleet has entered the Wolf 359 system," reported Captain Hyun Lee, now Minho's chief tactical officer. Velkari, Skareen, and Mordak ships. Total count 8,700 vessels, Minho smiled. The expression would have terrified the peaceful humans of a year ago. Now it was natural, predatory, filled with anticipation for the coming battle. "And our forces?" he asked. 1,900 ships, sir, but they are crewed by awakened humans. The difference was everything. Human crews no longer thought like individual ship operators. The war genes had activated something deeper, a collective tactical consciousness that allowed fleets to move like living organisms. Each ship was an extension of a single military mind. Dr. Sunmi Choi observed the transformation from her research station on New Terra. Human biology had stabilized in its new form, but the changes were permanent. Children were being born with combat instincts and strategic thinking that would have taken years to develop in the old humanity. "We are witnessing speciation," she reported to the few remaining civilian authorities. "Homo sapiens is becoming Homo bellicus, a species literally born for warfare." The evidence was everywhere. Human settlements had restructured themselves around military efficiency. Art, music, literature, even cooking had become focused on themes of conquest and victory. Parents taught their children tactics before teaching them to read. Admiral Jae-ho Song watched the Wolf 359 battle unfold from Earth's command center. The tactical display showed human forces moving in patterns that seemed impossible to coordinate across such distances. Yet they flowed together like schools of fish, each commander anticipating the other's moves through some shared instinct. "The Prometheus Gambit is in effect," he reported to the Emergency Council. The plan used captured enemy technology against its creators, but modified through human innovation to become far more deadly than the originals had ever intended. Commander Suanam led the infamous Ghost Brigade, human special forces who had learned to use enemy psychology as a weapon. Her teams did not just attack enemy installations. They infiltrated enemy minds using fear and confusion to destroy morale before the first shot was fired. Velkari Hive Ship Designation. 7 has surrendered without engaging, she reported. Their crew is requesting immediate evacuation. They say the ship is haunted by human phantoms. The Ghost Brigade used no supernatural powers. They simply understood their enemies better than the enemies understood themselves. Humans had always been excellent at reading the behavior of other species. The war genes had enhanced this ability to the point where human soldiers could predict enemy actions days in advance. Fleet Commander Young Ho Ko commanded the Earth Defense Fleet, which was no longer hiding its true nature. The fishing vessels revealed themselves as warships that outclassed anything in the alien alliance. Their weapons were based on principles that combined human creativity with alien technology in ways that should not have been possible. "Target their command structure first," he ordered. "Break their coordination and they will become confused prey." The Battle of Wolf 359 lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the three-power alliance had ceased to exist as a military force. Of their 8,000 ships, fewer than 300 escaped. The rest were destroyed, captured, or abandoned by crews too terrified to continue fighting. The victory was not just military. It was psychological dominance so complete that entire enemy species began evacuating their homeworlds rather than face human forces in battle. Hive General Thekmor was among the few Velkari survivors. His report to the remaining Velkari leadership was filled with terror. They do not fight like any species we have encountered. They fight like they were created for no purpose except warfare. Every human is a strategic genius. Every human ship crew works together as if they share a single mind. The galactic community watched the battle recordings with growing horror. The humans had not just won. They had demonstrated capabilities that seemed to violate the basic laws of military science. The Galactic Tribunal declared humanity a Class X evolutionary threat. The classification was reserved for species that posed existential dangers to all other life in the galaxy. They must be contained, declared Prime Counselor Veltharoon of the Hegemony Council. If humanity continues to expand at this rate, they will control the entire galaxy within a decade. But containment was no longer possible. Human fleets were already moving beyond their original territories, occupying worlds abandoned by species fleeing in terror. The expansion was not driven by conquest for resources or territory. It was driven by genetic programming that demanded dominance. Specialist Nari Bay, now Director of Weapons Development, created new systems that exploited not just the physical weaknesses of enemy species, but their psychological and cultural vulnerabilities. Her research team studied captured aliens like laboratory specimens, finding ways to break their spirits before engaging them in battle. War is not just about destroying the enemy's ability to fight, she explained to her subordinates. It is about destroying their will to exist as opposition to human expansion. The philosophy was spreading through human space. Children learned it in schools that had once taught peaceful cooperation. Human society was restructuring itself around the principle that conflict was not just necessary but desirable. Emperor Minho Park, the title had been forced on him by necessity as human territorial expansion required centralized command. He ruled from the bridge of his flagship, coordinating the movements of fleets across dozens of star systems. The transformation from peaceful captain to galactic emperor had taken less than 2 years. Minho sometimes remembered the man he had been, watching sunrise over wheat fields and thinking boring was good. That person felt like someone from another species. Sir, the Hegemony Council is requesting negotiations, reported Admiral Hyun Lee. What are their terms? Minho asked. Complete submission to human authority in exchange for guaranteed survival of their species. Minho considered this. The old humanity would have been horrified by the idea of other species begging for their lives. The new humanity found it natural and satisfying. Tell them we will consider their offer, he decided, after we finish occupying their territory. Across human space, the war genes had created a civilization that existed for one purpose: the complete domination of all other life in the galaxy. They had become what their ancestors had feared most. They had become perfect predators with the technology and organization of an advanced civilization. The galaxy faced a choice that was no choice at all: submit to human rule or face extinction at the hands of a species that had evolved beyond the need for mercy. 2 years after the first Velkari attack, Emperor Minho Park stood before a holographic display showing the entire galaxy. Green markers indicated human-controlled territory. The green was spreading like an infection, consuming everything in its path. Red markers showed remaining alien civilizations. There were fewer each day. Status report, Minho commanded. Admiral Hyun Lee stepped forward. The Velkari homeworld has surrendered unconditionally. The Skareen Collective has fragmented into refugee fleets fleeing to the Outer Rim. The Morduck clans have ceased to exist as an organized civilization. And the others? 17 species have pledged complete submission to human authority. 23 more have evacuated their territories and are requesting permission to exist in designated reservation systems. Minho nodded. The numbers were satisfying but incomplete. How long until we control everything? At current expansion rates, sir. Complete galactic dominance within 8 years. 8 years. Minho remembered when such a timeline would have seemed impossible. Now it felt slow. The war genes drove humanity to seek faster conquest. more complete victory, absolute dominion over all life. Dr. Sunmi Choi watched the Emperor's briefing from her laboratory. She had documented every stage of humanity's transformation, and the final results terrified her. The species she studied now bore only genetic similarity to the humans she had known before the awakening. Human children were born understanding military tactics. They played games of conquest before they could properly speak. Their first words were often strategic commands rather than mama or papa. "We have become what we once chose to suppress," she told her research team. "The question is, can we choose to change again, or have we evolved beyond the capacity for peace?" Her assistant, Dr. Jiwon Nam, looked up from genetic analysis data. The war genes are not just active now. They are dominant. Peaceful traits have been suppressed to the point where they may be permanently lost. The transformation was visible everywhere. Human cities were built like military bases. Art celebrated conquest and domination. Music carried the rhythms of marching armies. Even love songs were written about the beauty of perfectly executed battle plans. General Sua Nam, now military governor of the former Valkyrie territories, reported to the emperor from her command ship. The civilian populations are adapting to human rule. Those who resist are eliminated. Those who submit are allowed to exist as service species. Service species. The term had entered human vocabulary naturally. Other intelligent life forms were now categorized by their usefulness to human expansion. Those who could work were kept alive. Those who could not were eliminated with efficient brutality. "Any signs of rebellion?" Minho asked. "None that last longer than a few days, sir. Our psychological warfare division has perfected methods of breaking species-wide resistance. Most aliens now view human rule as inevitable. The Galactic Tribunal had dissolved after its member species either submitted to humanity or fled to unknown regions of space. The few remaining free civilizations had formed what they called the Exodus Fleet, carrying millions of refugees toward the galactic edge. Captain Young Hoko, now Admiral of the Pursuit Fleet, tracked their movement. "They are heading for the Andromeda transmission station, sir, attempting to flee to another galaxy. Pursuit course? Already laid in. We will intercept them before they can escape." Minho felt satisfaction at the report. The idea of prey escaping was intolerable to awakened humanity. Everything must submit or be destroyed. There could be no other options. But in the deepest archives of the Genesis vaults, philosopher Captain Nari Bay made a discovery that changed everything. She had been studying the oldest human records, files that predated even the war archives. What she found was evidence that humanity had been through this cycle before. "Multiple times, Emperor," she requested emergency audience. "I have found something that you need to see immediately." In the secure vault beneath Earth's capital, Nari showed Minho holographic records that were thousands of years old. They depicted humans as peaceful explorers, then awakening as conquerors, then making a choice that reset their entire civilization. "This is the 7th cycle," she explained. "Humanity rises as gardeners, faces extinction, awakens as gods of war, conquers everything, then chooses what to become next." The records showed previous human empires that had controlled entire galactic regions. Each time they had reached the point of total domination. Each time they had faced the same choice that now confronted Minho. "What did they choose?" he asked. "They chose to sleep again, to suppress the war genes and return to peaceful existence, to accept vulnerability in exchange for preserving their souls." Ancient recordings showed human emperors making the same decision across millennia. They would stand before their assembled fleets capable of conquering everything, and choose to give up that power. They knew that remaining as gods of war would destroy not just other species but humanity itself. Nari continued. "Eternal conflict creates a species incapable of anything except warfare. They would become living weapons with no purpose beyond killing." Minho studied the records with growing understanding. The biological programs that had awakened in response to the Valkyrie threat were not permanent evolutionary changes. They were temporary adaptations that could be deactivated by conscious choice. "The war genes can be suppressed again?" "Yes, sir, but only if the entire species chooses to do so. It requires a unanimous decision by human leadership to activate the pacification protocols." The choice was absolute. Humanity could remain as gods of war, ruling over a galaxy of terrified subjects who existed only to serve human desires. Or they could choose to become vulnerable again, accepting that future threats might destroy them. Minho called his senior commanders to Earth for an emergency council. Admiral Hyun Lee, General Suanam, Fleet Admiral Young Ho Ko, Dr. Sun Mi Choi, and others who had guided humanity through its transformation. "We stand at the crossroads our ancestors faced," he told them. "We can rule everything, or we can choose to remain human." The debate that followed would determine the fate of every living being in the galaxy. Admiral Hyun spoke for those who remembered humanity's peaceful past. "We chose to suppress our war nature once before because we understood that power without restraint leads to corruption. We became gods of war to survive, not to rule." General Sua argued for continuing the conquest. "We are superior to every other species. It is our natural right to dominate them. Why should we accept weakness when we can choose strength?" Dr. Sunmi presented the biological evidence. "If we remain in this state, we will lose the capacity for anything except warfare. Art, love, curiosity, compassion, all will be sacrificed to the drive for conquest. We will become weapons that have forgotten why they were made." In the end, the decision fell to Emperor Minho Park. He stood before the assembled human fleet, capable of conquering the entire galaxy within a decade. The choice was his alone. He thought of the man he had been, watching sunrise over wheat fields and believing that boring was good. He thought of the children being born who knew only how to kill. He thought of the species fleeing in terror toward other galaxies. "I choose," he said, his words broadcast to every human in the galaxy, "to remember what we were before we became what we are." The pacification protocols activated across human space. The war genes slowly returned to dormancy. The gods of war chose to become gardeners once again, accepting vulnerability in exchange for their souls. The galaxy watched in amazement as humanity pulled back from conquest, released their conquered territories, and returned to peaceful existence. And in the deepest vaults, new records were sealed away, documenting the seventh cycle of humanity's choice between power and peace. Someday, when humanity faced extinction again, the war gods would awaken. Until then, they would sleep and dream of gardens,